All right, so I will call this meeting of the Arlington Select Board to order. Are there any additions or deletions to or from the agenda, Mr. Zeiss?
I have none.
All right, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of Al Gaudreau, who was the land use administrator for the town of Arlington for quite a number of years. I'm not sure how many years that was. I'm not sure if he served in any other particular positions, but I know he was land use administrator for a number of years and helped me to understand how things were working when I was on the planning commission and when I replaced him. So I would just like to have a moment of silence to acknowledge the passing of longtime land use administrator for the town of Arlington, Al Gaudreau. If we could just have a moment of silence. Thank you. Nick, do we generally send anything to the family, or would we would of course mark it in the town report, but would we?
We'll often send a letter of gratitude for the service to the family.
I would appreciate that.
I would appreciate that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a card to go with it or something.
So all I did was call to order,
Oh,
no
okay.
additions, deletions, and then we just did that. So
Good.
we're at the minutes.
All right. Apologies for being late. The minutes of the, have you done public comment or no?
Yep.
No, I didn't.
Oh, no, we
Oh, no,
I
no
guess we
public
didn't.
comment.
I didn't.
Yeah.
If there's anybody on the call or in the room would like to weigh in on anything that's not on the agenda, now's your time. Go ahead, Steve.
Steve McClafferty. Just one thing I'd like to, two items really. First off, is it possible to get a copy of the water department bylaws? Just because, comment from my end, as a citizen, I get to vote on the town and the school budget, but you said let there be light.
Yeah.
But as a user of the system, it's relegated to the water department board, so I have no say of the budget or anything going on there outside of public comment. Also, as part of your discussion tonight, there's article on there or an agenda item about moving some ARPA monies over to the fire department. Nothing against the fire department, but would you consider moving funds over to the water department? Because from your minutes from your last meeting, you just talked about increase in the rates a little bit more for known capital shortfalls, as documented by the outside auditors. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the bylaws are public records. Is that
It's
not
actually
correct?
governed by a water service ordinance, and I can send you a link to that easily. And then and we can have the conversation on the ARPA funding matter under the ARPA item. But yes.
As far as the monies go, I'm not 100% sure we can do it like that to alleviate the usage of the bill, though, right?
Let's discuss it when we get to the ARPA.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll discuss that.
And so Nick, there's a state ordinance, the water service ordinance, and that's what
It's a town ordinance
A
that
town
you guys all
ordinance.
passed
Okay.
in
when we bought it, when we
When
bought
we
the thing.
purchased it.
So, but it's not bylaws the
No.
way it would be for a
It's
nonprofit.
built off model policy that
Right.
came from somewhere
Right.
that it's built off the town of Heinsberg's water
Okay.
service ordinance.
And so that town ordinance is on the website with other
It's just
ordinances.
in an idiosyncratic place. I will get that over to
Okay.
Steve to make sure he
Okay.
understands, he gets it.
But definitely a good, a good point, a good
Yeah,
thought.
and that flags that I do want to, in the future, reorganize the website to put the ordinance information in a different place, if that's more intuitive. But thank you for that.
Or you could put it in more than one place.
Yes.
Because different people have different intuitions.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Just need a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings.
So moved.
Second,
That's for the 11:25 meeting. So Glenn made the motion, Cynthia seconded to approve the minutes of the meeting of 11 November 25th. of 24. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I will abstain, I was absent.
Okay. And under old business, we have we need a motion to identify which option we're using.
Yes, which option
For
is the
the-
preferred alternative for the Benedict Crossing project? We've all reviewed that. We had an extensive discussion 2 meetings ago, or
And
last meeting.
it was number 3, wasn't it?
It was,
Yes.
Which
it
was
was.
putting a new
Option 3.
one-lane bridge on top of the existing abutments after
So,
repairing.
so long as the abutments
Right.
all are,
Right.
then we might need to revisit, yeah.
Right, and I've thought about this a lot, and I feel as if, they couldn't see, I mean, they must have inspected them visually, and I know that, you know, once they take the bridge off, or if they did x-rays or whatever they would do, I don't know, they would see more, but they didn't see anything from
Right.
what they were looking at,
Visual
which is a good
inspection.
sign.
Yeah,
And I'm not aware of ever having any problems with those abutments or any shifting or anything. I don't know when those abutments are from, if they're from 1927 or if they predate it, but they've been there almost 100 years. So even though we're now putting a heavier span on it, if we do repairs and deal with if there's any shifting or whatever, I'm starting to feel a little bit more optimistic.
me too.
See, I don't know if those abutments meet current code though for a heavier span. That's still one of the questions that we
Right,
have.
so one of the things they said is if we put a heavier bridge on, the weight rating over it may be
Correct.
lowered,
Correct.
so.
Lower than the previous.
Than the previous weight
Okay,
rating
okay.
as
So that's
well.
why we went with
Yes.
3 though,
Right.
because it was gonna be
It's gonna be the strongest bridge,
As-
it's gonna be the longest lasting
And
bridge.
we also don't know though,
as
once
close
they-
to what was there as possible though, right? I
Right,
mean-
and
Well, it's
that
gonna be
bridge,
steel and concrete.
Well, right, yeah,
but
I
that
understand
bridge
that, but
already excluded large vehicles, I mean, like logging trucks.
it was
had-
supposed to.
Supposed to. I don't, I mean, it was also a little bit narrow, I don't know how many, it was supposed to, but, so it wouldn't be that much of a restriction, even if we had to lower the weight limit a little bit, but, yeah, that's right, I forgot
If I
about that.
remember, the weight limit was probably at the minimum available at the time, anyway.
Minimum state requirement.
16,000 pounds or 24, one of the two. When I
Should be
come-
16.
So
That's
I'm
low
probably
for
still
I
down
just-
there.
My other,
I was gonna say, the sign's probably still down there anyway, but.
There's a sign.
the other question that I still have is how exactly are we paying for this?
That is a really good question, and I'm not quite sure what the timing would be in terms of, you know, if we go with 3, you know, we have a lot of engineering already, but we don't, you know, we're not ready to go to, I don't know what the stage is in terms of developing plans and getting an RFP out, you know, I don't know when we would be. I would like to try to put as much aside as we can. I mean, I wouldn't be in a rush to do this, although I'm kind of torn, because probably the cost will keep going up, you know, as we are trying to save up, but the idea of going into debt for this just really bothers me.
Well, and that's my concern because if we were to bond out to pay for the bridge, then we probably don't have the right ratio to be able to bond out for anything else, like a fire
No, and
hall
I'm not-
or wastewater.
And I'm not sure that's the right decision.
And, well, that's where I was going with that, because, well, we all agree that the Benedict Crossing Bridge would be nice to have. It doesn't service all of our constituents in the community
Exactly.
versus
Exactly.
like a fire hall or what wastewater everybody could benefit from the services that it could bring to town. So that's where my challenge still lies with this, in the fact that how are we going to pay for it? I agree with you that we shouldn't go into debt for a bridge,
Or not very much in it.
or not very much. And, you know, as Steve and Don really pointed out,
Right.
that, you know, I mean, we may be able to bond one project of 3 that we're talking about. And I get that the Benedict Crossing Bridge is very important for the people that live there, but when I look at our overall constituent base and then how many people that actually benefits, and well, there is a little bit more traffic on certain sections of River Road, there is still pretty much the same amount of traffic on it, and we haven't had it for how many years now? And change is hard, but then also change is learned, and soon it's never been there, so I don't miss it.
And I think that if we had to say we're not having that bridge, I think that the board would need to make a commitment to do additional work to the sections of River
That's
Road.
fair.
Which are, I mean, the section between Benedict Crossing and this end, the River Road or the West Mountain end, back in the 40s when my grandparents came, it wasn't even a road. It was a driveway, it had gates on it because of cattle. So there are parts of it that are just not.
And that's fair. That's fair to do road improvements.
So, but what we're committing to right now is the direction we would like to go, not
Yes.
the full project.
Right, we're not committed to the full
It
project.
does
This isn't
more
funding it,
investigation
this
on the abutments that are there,
Yep.
and if at that point they are deemed not appropriate, then we can,
Then we go back
then we can
back
go
to the
back.
drawing board, so to speak.
Correct.
Or if we get the fully developed plans and the whole question of the cost and whatever might be forthcoming from the state is just, we just can't face it, then we don't have, but what we're asking for now, Nick, is what we want the engineers to do.
It's what we want the engineers to make the preferred alternative, which will give us a little bit more of a leg up in future funding rounds. That's the biggest thing.
Okay.
Right now, it doesn't commit us to any future study.
Right.
It doesn't commit us to any
Right.
future funding of anything. It commits us to telling the engineers tomorrow
The options.
what you're gonna round out the study in what ends up as preferred alternative.
Because they're finishing the study now.
Okay.
And so-
That's fine.
Just
I'm-
1 week.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so we are
I just don't want to
committing-
commit us
No,
to
we
anything,
are
and
not
that's why I want to be
committing.
perfectly
No, I
clear.
think that's,
Right.
and I think
And that was
Planning
part of
stage
it,
is over.
is option 3 was they did more investigation on the
Yep.
abutments.
Well,
To
it's
make
not
sure.
they do more investigation.
Well, they have someone come in and do,
Well, no, it's not they. It's we hire someone else
Okay.
to do more investigation. That's a different. I need to be clear. It's a fundamentally different project that we are going to bid for. That we can. Nice thing is because we have all this bridge funding saved up in the contingency that we are building it, we have a lot of liquidity to float that as a $10,000 investigation.
So you mean that investigation is separate from what
Correct.
MSK
Right.
is doing? But MSK is gonna concentrate on developing
The plan.
alternative 3 to the extent that they can,
Yeah.
excluding
Yeah.
fancy.
Yeah, they're going to put it
Excluding that
in
investigation.
what end game analysis they can to make clear to any potential future funder that this is a competitive proposal.
Okay.
And
Okay.
That sounds.
Thank you for the clarification. Sorry
Can
for
you-
the long-winded.
do you have the numbers on what we have set aside in our bridge fund?
It's about $200,000 right now,
Okay.
and that was before this year, so about $240,000 right now.
Okay.
So we've been putting aside like $40,000.
$40,000 a year, and we came from effectively zero. Like we have
Right.
built this since the bridge was closed, which is an absolutely admirable thing of the taxpayer.
Right, and we thought we were gonna be pretty far along in covering the cost. I keep thinking about after Irene, if only we'd known that there was the internal damage, but we
Yeah,
just
right.
didn't know.
Well,
And it might not have been possible to fix
Well,
it
and
anyway.
Irene could have been a wake-up call for the town that because all of these other bridges across the state washed out, that we needed to up our savings rate at the time. And that didn't happen, but that was a logic that could have transpired. But a lot of towns after this round of funding, or of damage in the last 2 years, have had that wake-up call. And we're actually kind of out ahead of that after this project is completed, we can expect to keep the bridge funding where it's at in anticipation of repairing and replacing other future bridges.
I mean, I actually think that's a really good thought because, I mean, there are some entities that have a practice of any time you have an asset, you always have a reserve fund where you're saving up for, and it's hard, we don't wanna raise taxes, but I think what Nick just suggested is probably a useful idea. Okay, Dan, I know you got a copy of the report, but you weren't here for our discussion. Did you have any particular thoughts?
I read through it and I pretty much understood the whole thing. I didn't really have any questions about it or anything. I tend to agree with Matt that in any of these projects, it always, what helps make the decision here is it gets prioritized, let me put it a different way, it gets prioritized based on how many of the community citizens it serves. So the ones that serve the most usually get the most, and so on. But because that one, well, it's convenient for the local people right along the river right there, really doesn't serve, maybe emergency services, maybe not so much, but it's not that it doesn't need to be there. I do think it needs to be there. I think it's just a matter of timing and setting aside enough money to do it eventually. And
And I
going
think-
through rounds of grant writing and so
Yep.
forth.
And it's important to note that the last that was scored, this was the 7th highest scoring bridge project that was currently in the queue in the county, which a couple of those bridges will get funded over the next couple of years. A couple of them are exceedingly expensive, but it scored, like being on the committee that scores this, it scored a lot better than I would have expected. I expected it to be like close to dead last in the county because of the competing infrastructure and things like that. But it is firmly on a list of 15 projects. It was 7th in the county.
So that doesn't open us up for any more money?
Not yet. We got to get some of those other rounds, other bridges that were higher priority and very expensive funded first. But yeah, it does not.
Because I was under the same impression as Steve, that I thought we were getting more money for this project.
No, it's in the regular state fund, in the regular state structures grants round, that it is going to be just as competitive as every other bridge project in the county. In special bridge funding rounds that will fund just bridges, it will score relative, because this work has been done, it will score higher than it did otherwise. So we can't game these scoring criteria. They've made them very anti-gaming. It's very built around the fundamentals, traffic flows, and proximity to amenities and critical facilities.
Yeah, and we're not trying to game anything. I mean,
No.
we know that there are three other bridges, and I think if the funds we had in hand were sufficient, or with some state funds sufficient, I think we would be having a different discussion.
Right.
But whatever it was, 1.2 million or whatever, and having to bond for it, that just that's just really hard to swallow because of the fact that, and I do want to point out that after Irene, this was the only functioning bridge. So you may think of this,
Right.
well, there's 3 other bridges, we don't need it.
And
After
it was unknown
Irene,
to us, it was damaged.
and it was damaged anyway, but so there's no such thing as enough bridges. I think that's
No, I'm
but-
not.
but-
I don't
but
disagree
no,
with any of that.
But I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think going into debt is really
Yeah.
not something I want to do, and I would rather try to save up as long as we can if the inflation doesn't outrun us.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah, a question. You mentioned we have 440,000 saved.
240.
200.
And then we might
Is
get
it-
200 from the state or something.
Yeah,
Is
200 is
that-
the max state structures grant.
Is that to pay for the study, your option number 3?
It would be to pay for whatever we decided
Okay,
to do.
yes, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure. And I think it would be a lot different discussion of right on the other side, on the River Road side, there was a firehouse.
And it was.
Oh, it would be a lot
It would be.
different discussion.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if there was something that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So there is
Yeah.
critical infrastructure
Okay.
as defined by state and federal rules on the other side of that bridge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
No, much appreciated.
I mean, you talk about the traffic, any log truck or anything like that, any box truck, they're not going through the cover bridge. So they're traveling one end of that road to the other. That does do a lot of damage to that road over a course of a year. Especially last spring, it really was horrible.
But I'm not
Whereas
sure
if
some
they-
of those entities can cross
No,
the
but
new
a
Bennett
box
crossing
truck would, that can't
box
go through the
truck.
cover bridge.
because it's too big.
A FedEx or a
Yeah.
UPS could,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
The fire trucks, we've got one that won't go through any of our cover bridges.
Yep.
And the others, we've always built to fit through them specifically because of that reason.
But if
And
you,
it makes a lot longer trip around.
What
I
about the
understand that.
ambulance? Can the
Ambulance is fine.
Yeah,
The ambulance
yeah.
Because I think that is one concern that,
That's the one I hear.
that if the ambulance needs to get to someone between the covered bridge and the Rochester Bridge, the Green Bridge, the West Mountain Bridge, whatever you wanna call it, it's gonna take them longer to go the whole lane.
It's
or
about
whatever.
a marginal 3 mile extra round trip
Yeah.
on to the most remote property.
You know, your box truck deliveries like your FedEx and UPS, now they've learned a new route. Like if the bridge is there, would they use it or would they continue on their regular trip?
For a long time.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Now it's been out, so there's
Right,
new routes
right.
that are built and in
Yep.
in
But I'm
Amazon's
just saying
case,
it
it's
does
computer
add a lot
generated,
more
so they have to
traffic than you would
follow.
think.
No,
Yeah.
I mean,
I live
I'm,
down there. It
I mean,
adds
yeah,
a lot more
I'm
traffic.
here too at my aunt's house, and there is more traffic.
No, I don't
So,
disagree with that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
It's, yeah, very much understood.
It's more traffic in certain sections.
right, right,
Yes.
Right.
That wouldn't normally be there.
That's right.
If they had that other bridge to cross.
that's right. And I
Whatever
think,
the
and
new
I-
normal is.
You know, and I think that, you know, because in some of the sections, particularly between Benedict Crossing and the West Mountain Bridge, it's essentially a one-lane road, and people do not drive as if it's a one-lane road, so it's.
So,
Okay.
so we just.
So you just need a motion to
designate the preferred
Designate
alternative.
options free as the most, as the path we wanna move forward with.
So I make a motion to confirm with MSK Engineering that the Arlington Select Board would like to concentrate on option 3 for the Benedict Crossing structure replacement.
Second.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Glenn to approve and report the option 3 to MSK for the preferred option moving forward on the Benedict Crossing Bridge. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, ARPA update and awards.
Okay, so we have 4.
Can we have it on the,
Yes, actually, it's a little bit easier to operate on the paper copies for now
Okay.
because I don't have all of them
oh, okay.
scanned. So what I'd like to start with is the water department organizational.
We're gonna do these separately,
Yeah, we're gonna do these as
Yeah.
4 separate motions just because it's a lot easier.
okay?
In part because I want to get this water one authorized right now before any prices change on Amazon and things like that
Okay.
mess up the bidding or the pricing. So the first item is organizational equipment and materials for the water department, and that one I can bring up on the screen, which I will do momentarily. And it is a group of, a group of materials that is tied together by a theme, which is organizing the water department under Mr. Brace's leadership. And these are things like here, a blueprint storage rack to store all of our water department blueprints,
Yep.
a label maker, bins for our parts and pieces so they can be stored more efficiently, a bookcase for his office, clipboards for various paperwork that is filled out, USB drives to move equipment, as well as sheet protectors for his reusable types of forms, and then 2 units of racking for the yellow barn. So it totaled to $894.44 for water department organizational materials.
What was the amount on that?
Eight
There,
nine
it's
four.
Eight nine
also
four
on the-
44.
On the top right of the number.
Okay, I got it.
I think that all makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
I do too.
It's storage and setting up his office, and I think he'll be able to work more efficiently if all these things are taken care of.
And you guys did the work instead of being lazy and just calling you line.
This is,
So
You guys wanna
that
look
saved
at this
money.
one?
No,
I'm
good.
okay.
so.
Thanks, though.
So if we can get a motion to approve this now, I will literally process the order now because I had one of these items go out of stock, like between when I printed everything out at 2:30 and now, so.
Okay, I make a motion to approve of the expenditure of $894.44 from ARPA funds for the Arlington Water Department's organizational materials and equipment
From Amazon,
from Amazon.
thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Matt to approve the order of the Water Department organizational materials from Amazon at a total of $894.44. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Actually, could I have a re-vote on that order?
Sure.
$895.34, that's the risk of doing this, at an amount of $895.
$895.44, correction.
34 or 44?
895.3.34.
Okay,
All right, do we have to
Just-
withdraw the
yeah,
previous motion?
just
I think
correct.
you can just amend it.
Okay, I make a motion to amend the previous motion to the amount of $895.34.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Matt to amend the amount of the previous motion to $895.34. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
I'm clicking through
Any
that
opposed?
right now.
Good.
Perfect. So, next item up on this list is the large format printer and scanner from Amazon or from CDW for a total of, it's printed on there. It should be CDW.
That one?
Yep. So $2,588.40, and this was discussed briefly at the special, where this was put in to do scanning of things like blueprints, zoning documents. It'll allow us to do a little bit of light printing of such documents as relevant, but we don't expect to use the printing option. But the printer is cheaper than a standalone document scanner.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
it is also a state contract rate.
I was just gonna ask if that
Yeah, that
was,
is
it's
that is the Vermont state
CDWG,
contract rate.
so.
For
So if you were
HP.
gonna send blueprints out to be scanned, if you sent approximately 12 or 13 sets out, it pays for itself.
Yes.
Yeah, and it also will allow us to do some digitization of cemetery records, which is the biggest thing for me, because those are irreplaceable books that we cannot, that are a huge nightmare, and many other towns have spent $10,000+ on a project like that. We should be able to at least get a more functional version of the cemetery management with this tool over the course of a year or two,
And
which
would that-
excites me because that is an extremely fragile
Yes,
component of our government.
and that would be able to be digitized and saved to the cloud.
Yes, and then we
That's
don't
important.
worry about Natalie's house burning down, which is the current
Yeah.
fear. So that is
Cynthia,
Where would this, where would this
the
go?
clerk's office.
town clerk's office.
Now,
Where?
you,
I mean, it's big.
oh yeah, it's big, and we would either have it on the desk and remove it from the
The table?
stand that it would come with, or we would place it in the back corner.
The
But
stand,
there-
it usually is on wheels. Those stands
I
are
was
usually
thinking
on
it might be
wheels, so
on
you
wheels,
can
so
move
you
it
can
around.
slide it. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, we can find a place to slide
Yeah.
it.
Okay, but I mean, you thought of that.
Robin and I talked about
You're
Okay,
better off
alright.
keeping it on the stand because if
Right.
you print, it's got a sling in it.
Yeah, no,
so
I better
You know,
do
it's,
that.
it's actually
You can
a
move it
lot
around that way.
cheaper than many of the other options we looked at.
Okay. All right, I make a motion to authorize the purchase of a large document printer scanner using ARPA fund to the amount of $2,588.40 from CDWG.
Second?
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Matt to approve the purchase of a scanner using ARPA funds at total amount of $2,588.40. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So that's two.
And then
Those are those.
Then we had the table item, which was the man basket for the highway department. And I just wanted to give it to you guys in case you wanted to reconsider it. We can put this on the agenda for next meeting. Mark's not here to explain
Okay.
anything. But I wanted to give you the option if you wanted to act on that tonight.
And I did not get in touch with
Okay,
Mark
so let's
to do
act on
my
that.
due diligence.
So let's table that one.
Yep.
And then the other one is the air packs for the fire department, and that's as budgeted in the spreadsheet. That would be 3 units of this at this $9,000 and change number. Brian's here if you want to ask him any questions. We discussed this as part of our amended ARPA plan.
So that's that 28,580,
Yep,
64
that
number?
should be that number times 3. I want to double check my math on this.
I think you've got the total in the ARPA spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I believe I do have the total in here.
What I have right here
the
is
total in the ARPA spreadsheet.
28,580,
'cause we're not paying-
64.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what's the per item cost on the quote?
per unit,
952688.
yeah, 9526.88.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So that gets us 3 units of this, which moves us along and gives us a little bit more resiliency in case we do not get a grant one in one of these future rounds, as we're actively working on.
580.64. And that's a per unit cost of $9,526.88.
Excuse me.
So,
Who's that through, Brian?
And yes.
moving on. So I can, all right, so we need a motion.
Yep.
I can make a motion to approve the purchase of, what do we call them? Are they air packs?
Air packs.
CBA.
CBA.
Three.
CBA.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 3 SCBA air packs, at a unit price of $9,526.88 each, for a total of $28,580.64 to be paid from the ARPA funds.
Second. Motion's made by Matt and seconded by Jamie. Everybody understand the motion? The total is $28,580.64, the total of the 3. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. So now we can rotate to Mr. McClafferty's item.
Did we lose the camera?
Let me find it.
That was after our last.
That's the infrared.
Thermal.
The
Thermal
thermal
camera, I didn't,
Yeah,
I see it in here, it
I-
says
We spoke briefly
pending
about it last
quote.
week, but
Yep, we talked about it.
Nick should have it voted, I don't have it voted.
Yeah,
We just need to.
I'm not sure I'm finding it. I didn't remember
I
seeing
sent
it,
it
but
to you over the break,
let me. Was it from your fire chief email?
yes.
Okay. So I saw the grant quotes.
Should've
Light
been
towers.
before the break, so.
Yeah, I don't see that in my email. If you can try and grab it. But anyway, while he's doing that, we can discuss what Mr. McClafferty's.
You got it?
Yeah, do you
Okay.
need me to send it to you now, or you just wanna take it off the phone?
Yeah, we can just take your phone up there. So it's actually well under budget. So it's thermal camera for $4,792.99.
What was that again?
That was a larger thermal camera.
Read that?
Oh, I can read that, I got my bifocals on today.
There you go.
That does, yeah, that's just thermal, right, yeah. I got so many quotes over.
All right, so let's see. I would make a motion to approve the purchase from Municipal Emergency Services, a thermal imaging camera and the associated calibrator and truck charger for a total amount of $4,792.99 to be paid from ARPA funds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Matt, seconded by Jamie, to purchase from MES the thermal imaging camera as mentioned in the motion for the total amount of $4,792.99. All those in favor, to be out of ARPA funds, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so regarding Mr. McClafferty's question on, is there a way to, like, our planned alternative has been to transfer residual funds, as in everything that's not otherwise obligated, at the next meeting at the end of the meeting, after we have made all awards, to the fire company as the means to kind of round out and make sure every dollar is spent when we didn't have small projects that added up to the final total. So we were always going to have some form of residual. It has been planned for some time to go to the fire company. There is a
Fire
mechanism.
company or fire department?
Fire
Company.
company.
Okay.
Because
It's a non-profit.
Yep.
because
I wanna
that
make sure.
that allows that is a very simple way to appropriate the funds or obligate the funds. I
Gotcha.
need to be precise with my language here because
Obligate.
obligate is the thing that we must do. We cannot appropriate funds here.
Right.
So by obligating these funds, we can simply say, fire department, we're going to cut you a check, and then authorize a special warrant to that effect. Just make a motion at the end of that meeting to say to authorize a special warrant to be made out in the amount of X. To complete moving of this money to the water department, we would need to designate that these funds are set to offset existing expenses within the water department, which we could do. We could say designate them to offset expenses incurred for payroll for the existing budget year. And that would take these funds and move them into the water department. That is what, for instance, the town of Bennington did through their general fund, because they had a delay in a real estate transaction for the Ben High project. And they, at their last meeting that happened during our special, moved funds in that way when they learned that their real estate transaction was not going to close and sign in time. So that is how towns are doing that. There is a particular procedure to this. It is a large administrative lift to do, but it is something that the board can consider. We were not prepared for a little semi-scrambling, that is fine, but it's certainly something that is an option for the government to retain the ARPA funds, but it cannot be a vague motion. It must be tied to a specific expense, which is why payroll is a very easy expense to do.
How much money are we talking about?
$13,977.40 if current plans are complete. And if we authorize this man basket at the last meeting, and the matter that's to be decided during the confidential executive session portion of the meeting associated with land transactions is decided as budgeted, it would be just under $14,000.
Assuming all of those things.
Assuming everything is
basket,
done,
everything.
but yes, it is certainly something that is an option if we would like to do that. We certainly would expect that if we appropriated them to the fire company, that they would use them for a sound public purpose, but it is likewise an option for the government to.
But we don't have any strings on those
We certainly
funds.
do not have any strings. It inherently would have no strings. But yes, if we would
It couldn't have any strings?
it could not have. We could write a contract and hope that the fire company could execute that contract in a timely fashion for us to. It would have to be executed under contract by the end of the year, signed off by the select board. So you guys could authorize me to write a contract with the company that has the relevant strings. Assuming those strings would be acceptable to the company, they could sign off on them and accept those strings. But the simplest way to do this would be appropriate these funds or obligate these funds by simply saying, by check warrant. We are going to cut a check and say, here is the money. That has no further administrative burden at this point. And
We can't put it in a sinking fund?
that is one thing we absolutely cannot do.
I just had to ask.
Yeah,
I
no,
just
I
had to
wouldn't.
ask.
If we had that opportunity, this entire
I
conversation
just
would have
had
been
to-
planned very
I
differently.
figured, but
No,
I
I
just had to
appreciate you.
ask.
It's important for the public to know that.
Yeah.
That we can't just say, put this toward the bridge.
Right.
Or put this toward
Right.
any other
Yeah.
future
Right.
obligation.
In particular, pension obligation.
Pension obligations is the biggest
big
thing that
no-no.
you have to explicitly sign off on, but every single time. Thank goodness we don't manage any of those, but I'm very glad we didn't have to touch that. But yes, so we are, but yeah, it is written in such a way that you have to really try to play some very creative, money management practices to move them into a sinking fund.
No, we don't wanna do, we don't
Simpler
wanna
is
do.
better.
I just
Right
had
now,
to ask.
civil is good.
I guess I was comfortable with, shifting it to the fire company. I guess I like the idea of some kind of strings. If it's possible to have strings, I don't understand why we couldn't be allocating it to more equipment, to keep the firefighters safe and to help them do their jobs. But I also think Mr. McClafferty has a point. I wonder if it'd be possible to split it with, half going to the
That's
fire
what I was
company
gonna say.
and half going to the water department. And, I understand, Nick, regrettably, that it would create some administrative things. But I mean, $6,000 in the context of the water department budget is not a small amount of money.
If we're gonna do that, I'd be tempted to say, if we're gonna bear the administrative burden of that, we should allocate the entire thing. We've spent
Okay,
a lot of
but
money
I don't know that we
on
wanna
the
do
fire
that.
department.
Well, I mean, the
With-
other thing is, why don't we buy another
Well, that's
SCBA?
what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
And then just and that leaves us with 44, 50,
And that could go to
12.
the water department.
And we just allocate that to offset payroll
And
at
then we're good.
the water department, and that's easy, cause that's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
month and a half
So
of
let's hold
payroll.
off until the next meeting to make any final decision.
Yeah.
because
I'm just throwing that out there that
Yeah,
we
I've
know.
got 2 quotes out that I've been waiting for, that I still have not received, that we had talked about
Okay.
in this ARPA.
Okay.
And Brian, I think, has an idea as well.
So,
Right.
I mean, I'd rather,
I'm trying, like, when you guys have asked for quotes, I've been getting them right away, so. And I appreciate everything that we've got, but for me, if you wanted to tie some strings to it, we just bought 15 what are called Team Wendy helmets, you guys voted on them, that was an ARPA fund. I am shy 12, so every member would have one.
perfect.
So if we bought another 15, it was $6,000. That gives me a few extra in case something happens to them. But then every member, so I picked 15 was just a good number to start because I don't want to be greedy, 15s. But then every member would be able to have this for our wildland rescues, our storms. We're gonna make it where that's part of your storm gear now, so when we're out in the wind, that's the helmet you're putting on.
I
all
love the
that
idea
stuff,
of getting everybody
Same thing, yeah.
everybody the same thing, and
Yeah.
everybody gets something new,
Yeah.
But,
right?
so,
Love that idea.
instead of another air pack, I mean, granted, air packs are great.
I had the price
And,
right here,
no,
so it was easy.
But air packs are great. These 3 that you guys just quoted tonight are gonna go on the truck that we are trying to get back into service that was brought from the
Okay.
town, the hoses coming in, the air packs. So that's what these 3 are going on, but I would rather see a little bit more, if you're willing to give us more money, a little bit more PPE stuff
Okay.
for the back. That's just,
And then we would actually spend the money instead of
I love that.
just transfer.
I'd rather
I think
buy stuff.
that, I would prefer that too.
That's always the better thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And then we'll
should
just-
we wait, should
So I
we
could-
wait on, but I do think that if there is, if we can give a little more to the fire department and we still have something left over, even $5,000, that's not nothing in the water
Yeah.
department.
Yeah, it's,
What are you waiting for quotes on?
Wildland gear.
we have the pants, right? That's already been
And they're
approved.
specific, size specific, and that's one of the problems. I've been having.
Okay, so, and that's
Why
one
don't we
thing
do the helmets? I love the idea of getting everybody
Yeah.
the same helmet.
Yeah, like the numbers that we're working off of here include whatever was previously authorized for the pants, which was the $4,500. So
Well, what did we spend on the fire helmets? We spent, is this updated, so 6,397.50?
yeah, that was and that quote should still be good. 'cause I
That was the
just
first
ordered 'em.
15.
Yeah, that was for 15.
It was alerted on 11/4, so we're
Yeah,
not
it
30
should be
days
fine.
past.
Most of his quotes have still been
Yeah.
good.
And 12 more would fill out the entire department.
12
think
would, and like I
50,
said, I
15.
let's
guess
just get 15.
15 gives you.
15 would be
gives you a few.
same as the
Or,
quote.
well, we're gonna add members, is what's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
We're optimistic here.
Well, we have added a couple.
We did.
members.
Exactly. So that sounds
So
good.
the 6,397.50, was that for 15?
Yes. So that leaves us 79.90.
Yep.
I can just share the spreadsheet.
757950, approximately,
Yep.
within a few
Yep.
cents,
So that's
plus or minus $1.
yeah, that's where we're at. But yes, we will. Effectively, what I will do is I will go to the town of Bennington. I will find the motion that they used to
Actually.
delay their and move their ARPA funds, and we will use a variant of that motion as relevant. I will have
At
that
the
prepared
next
for the
meeting.
next meeting.
Yeah.
So, I could make a motion for the fire helmets. I think I can make this in a way that
Should
would
we wait for
work.
the, man basket though, or are we not worried about that right now?
We can do, we can always pull that off if we need to, or we can
Okay.
wait to make
How
that
much was
decision.
the mailbox?
2,500 and some change.
Yeah, $2,000 and change.
And we'll have
I know Mark was trying to find
757950.
out, the question that was asked was if it was OSHA.
OSHA
compliant.
approved, right, which is,
And he has not gotten, his last I knew. he
and
has
I
not
did
gotten-
not do my due diligence last
You
week and
did
get a
not.
hold of him.
Well, the
Yes,
other
properly.
issue that I had was in terms of how often is this needed? I don't know. I mean, I know he has problems with lots of trees. He doesn't like trees.
I understand that, but just,
I do have a question as to whether that's actually OSHA.
Well, that was his question.
Yeah.
Back to him with, he was trying to find out how.
Because we always have
OSHA
trouble with those that
Does
go
the
on the
state have one?
forklifts.
So, I'm not an expert, but I was part of the safety team in the state, and back then, now things can change, so find out yourself, don't take it off of me.
Yeah.
But on a loader, we could not have a man basket, because a loader tips in too many directions, this way, that way. A fork truck is different.
good,
A fork
doesn't,
truck has safety device, it only goes straight down, and when it goes at a certain speed, it stops.
Yep.
A loader doesn't. But, like I said, check it on your own,
Well, that's what he was trying to find out, and he.
it's
couldn't
real
get a
hard for
straight
me to
answer.
believe that we're
That
OSHA
thing could
compliant.
Yeah.
with a
Well,
loader.
and we have trouble with them even now on the forklifts, especially if you have a forklift that can go out.
Right.
Because you
Yeah,
can't,
I
it
think
can
you better
only
get
go
rid of
up and
cherry
down.
picker.
I just, I mean, you're not very
or
much.
hire a
It-
cherry picker.
Yeah.
You
don't-
rent the cherry
I'm not
picker
sure
for
about the safety, and
$1,500.
I don't know how often they would
Yeah.
need this, so
Well,
I
I think the
have a
basket
problem.
itself is compliant. Hooking it onto a
With a
loader is
chain.
where I have serious
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah, the basket itself on the ground
basket-
is
Yeah, on the ground,
compliant.
yeah, fine, you know.
I've
it's like-
used them on Lowell's,
It
and they're
seems they're-
compliant.
It
But,
seems like there's pretty
They're
much
always-
universal.
Well, like you said,
concern here.
Lowell is with a fork,
Straight
you
up and
know.
straight
you know, it
Yeah.
straight
Yep.
up and straight down, it telescopes in,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
telescopes out.
The
that's
bucket-
fine.
Particularly when you have
The bucket
uneven
goes straight
ground.
down and right straight up.
But even
Yeah, because you have to
Lowell,
throw outriggers.
relying
And
on the space
Do you
safety
have
brake
outriggers on
to
that
keep
thing?
it in place,
I
and
don't
not
know.
rolling when somebody's in the basket.
do on a
Um,
on a
Okay,
backhoe,
so-
but I don't
Yep.
think on a bucket.
So do you want me to pull this, or do you want me to, it sounds like there's a pretty much universal sense of the board to just pull this. And from the plan.
Right now, I'm not convinced that, even aside from the safety issues, I'm not convinced that this is the best
really
use
need
of
it.
our money, that we really need it, and then we have the safety questions. I mean, we're not finalizing this right now, so if Mark wants to come in with
Yeah,
Let's
something
table
else.
it
But if
till-
we do if we were to
we
do
do the
the
helmets
helmets
now,
now,
we
we
still
still
have
got
them. Yeah, we can do
75
yeah,
and
the helmets are
change.
safe. We
Right.
can absolutely do that whenever we want.
So
So let's do those.
I'll make a motion that we should to purchase an additional 15 fire helmets in the amount not to exceed $7,397.50 from ARPA funds.
Second.
Motion made by Matt,
There.
6,000.
6,000.
Oh,
That's the
is that
number
what I said?
That,
6,000.
You said 7.
Oh, I meant 6,397.50. I was reading it right from here. If I said something else, I'm sorry.
no,
Yeah,
okay.
Second.
so Matt made the motion and Cynthia seconded to buy 15 helmets at a price of $6,397.50. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. Everybody has the same helmet now.
Yay. I will do the follow-up on that of moving the remainder, and we will go from there.
And I will talk to Mark and I'll
And we'll-
either get him in here
Yep.
at our next meeting or at least
Get
have
him in here and get the
a paper,
information.
piece of
But
paper.
he's got a heavy lift right now. No,
It is.
Yeah, and then we can make the decision and divide out the rest of it at the
Yeah.
next meeting. and
Right,
we're good.
absolutely. And we're done.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
we'll-
Nick, and you'll know if
Yeah.
there are any other hitches
Yeah,
about
next
moving
meeting
funds
will
to the
be,
water.
we'll have a kind of idiosyncratic method to it because of the Benedict Crossing study, reimbursement and warrants and stuff. So we will probably fill that into what is gonna be I'll say kind of weirdly formatted meeting and warn that in advance, which was gonna be necessary to file the Benedict Crossing reimbursements.
Do we need a motion on the Zoom thing?
No, that's just you. That's just the credit card policy. So that's just,
I circled the yes.
that's all I needed. So, thank you. I will put that on my list. Okay, so that is the end of the ARPA item.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
on to the healthcare plan discussion. This relates to our payroll budget.
Yes, that relates to your healthcare budget. You got the copy of the table. We are the platinum plan right now.
That's what we currently
You
have,
can
right?
move within the standard plans as you see fit, as we are currently during the open enrollment period.
Okay.
Almost
That
at
is-
the end of open enrollment.
Have you looked through this? And
I am not rendering an opinion on
He's-
this because I am on the other side of
Gotcha.
this table. But I certainly
What's
think,
the one question I had, because I didn't see what the 24 table was for the premiums?
it is about a 15% increase on
15%?
It is about a
Okay,
15% increase.
thank you.
And you've seen some of these numbers because you've gotten, they were built into the water department conversations we've had over the course of the last
Unless
couple
there's another one,
months.
I don't mean. to
But
keep
not,
you.
not
Do you
cohesive.
want mine?
Um,
Do you need mine?
So
I just gonna look at it.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
happy to go and grab the 24 sheet if that's
No,
relevant.
it's okay. You told me 15%,
Okay,
so I'm
perfect.
fine.
And this sheet, which actually has, specific
Yeah, it
savings, which
does.
we can't discuss, but it gives you some sense of,
Yes.
I mean, what I'm seeing is that the increase in the cost of the healthcare premiums to the town for the employees rivals their actual underlying pay increase. You know, I mean, you know, so in other words, if an employee got a $1 pay increase, their healthcare might be increasing. Is this true? Am I correct?
I mean, our healthcare plan is part of the employee's overall compensation package.
No, and actually, for if it's a lower paid employee, the increase in the cost of the healthcare premium paid by the town may actually be bigger than their raise.
100%.
So
Yes.
it's really, really significant, and I think that you know, so I think it's really important to me that our employees be aware that the town has been bearing this cost, and that when, you know, if they're, I mean, like last year when we didn't increase wages at all because we were making up for the problem, everybody got an increase in total compensation.
Right.
That was probably bigger than the increase in
raise
wages
that you
they
were-
might have gotten. So I wanna be sure that employees are aware of that. As I've said before, I'm not sure I wanna make a change for this coming year because we just hired 2 new employees on the understanding that this is
On the
where we are.
understanding, right?
But, you know, and so I think it's fair to have a discussion with them if they wanna express opinions and to phase something in. But I guess what I feel is that I don't feel that the taxpayers can bear all this risk and cost by themselves, and I think the employees have to start paying some of the premiums. And I don't know, there are a lot of different things we could do. We could go from a platinum to a gold or a silver, and still pay all the premium. But I actually feel that I want people, I mean, in almost every other context, you're gonna pay part of your
Yeah, so
insurance.
this
Correct.
happened at
Could
this
you let me
school a
finish?
few years
You know,
ago.
so I'm not locked into anything except that I don't wanna pull the rug out from anybody. So this could be an ongoing discussion, but I feel as if next year, not this coming year, but the following year, to me, something has to change so that the employees are bearing some of these costs, because you can't have something going up by 15% every year, which is what it's done, and the taxpayers can't bear the cost. Yes,
So
what
we
happened
did
to
this,
the
I
schools?
think it was a number of years ago at the school where it used to, or it was like, we went to an 80-20
I've been
Pro-
80/20 since I started.
since you started. At one point it changed down, I think, I remember having these like 80/20. Maybe it was different groups within the
Changed,
school or
yes. So the
something.
teachers had one plan and
That was it, and it was during in the state change, so I think, I mean, the industry standard is typically 80/20. Cynthia, I would say, I agree with you, I mean, we are
You too.
late in the year and late in open enrollment to really, I feel like, put the burden on our employees. It is such a short notice change.
Yeah.
But I think that this warrants a discussion early next year to start to prep employees if we decide that we want to make a change. Either we stay with the Platinum Plan at an 80/20 contribution, or we give them the choice that they could choose Platinum or Gold and have the contribution. I think there's a number of ways to build out that program, but that gives them, to your point, the year to kind of plan, and we can help say, okay, so you need to, set aside because you'll have to, or, plan that you're gonna pay $10 towards your
Right,
healthcare,
so they
whatever
can
that
budget,
number might
yeah.
be, so that they can budget and
Yeah.
start
And
to
like,
gauge
and
that.
I think it's really important to me that each employee have the information for themselves that Nick
Mm-hmm.
has provided us with, so that, for instance, this coming year, I know that we definitely wanna do something with with salaries, wages, because we couldn't do it last year. But it may not be as big as someone might expect, but they need to understand that we're
We're
still
covering-
doing
We're,
it, and
we're
that's.
still covering. that.
Right,
And we're
that's
covering a
more than
15% increase.
Right, and so I think, I really want that out there, and if they start, and the thing that I don't know is how you balance, okay, if you're gonna be paying part of your health care, does that affect how we give wage increases? And I just don't, we're gonna have to balance all that.
One point that I'm gonna add that's that's not expressing any opinion on this, which is that we do have the option to adjust up the payment in lieu of taking health insurance, which has been stagnant for at least 5 years. So as health insurance premiums have gone way up, it may be appropriate in the next rewrite of the personnel policy to consider whether to increase the you choose not to take the town health insurance and you get an amount which is currently set at $4,000 in lieu of health insurance, of taking the town health insurance. That may create a little bit more incentive for those who have health insurance choices through Partners Healthcare plans to take that and shift the burden of that healthcare funding to some other entity, or at least not make it a 100% sure thing that this is going to be the best plan for them. And I say that in a value neutral way without expressing any opinion on anything.
No, I think that, I was thinking about that because I know that not everybody takes it, so I think we could look at that, but I'm not interested in necessarily pushing employees in any particular direction.
No.
I just think that the taxpayers can't bear the full burden of these healthcare costs as they have for,
Yeah.
50 years.
And this
or
is,
something like this.
I mean, they're on a really amazing plan.
It's an amazing plan. I personally think that we might want to think about just having them pay part of that plan. But the alternative, if the cost is a problem for people, would be to step down the plan and have them pay part. And then what you have is you got a bigger deductible, or not everything is covered, and so you're moving the risk around. You're moving the risk around, and this is not risk-free. There are definitely shifts here of costs, but at some point I sort of feel like, I'm not saying that the healthcare costs can't keep growing, but they can't keep growing at 15% a year. We just,
Right.
After the coming years,
It's three
something has to
times.
change.
Yeah.
Right,
times
it's just
inflation.
not.
Jamie, can you comment on the school system and what is available at school?
So, I know
You guys
the
have
majority
goals.
of people right now at the school are on the gold plan.
Yeah.
That's the
And we
standard,
are an
yeah.
80/20.
Yep.
We also do a health savings plan along with that,
It's just,
with a card, that we can use for all of our doctor visits, medication.
For your deductibles and,
Yep, all of our deductibles. So, and I believe that is $4,000 for a family.
and that's pre-tax deduction.
Yes. Yes. So that's where we're at right now. I mean, my gold plan is pretty freaking good, and I'm going for surgery next week. I'm gonna let you know what the bills are after. Because I've used up all my savings.
Yeah,
My out-of-pocket is used up, so.
yeah.
I like the idea of starting the discussions early next
Early.
year, maybe implementing the following year. One thing we should do is analyze this out on a spreadsheet with a couple of different options, maybe lowering the plan and increasing the participation. But another way of analyzing it is you could say we would phase it in over 2 or 3 years to get to the percentage we want.
Yep.
on the
Yeah, you could do
participation.
90-10 and then
You know,
80-20, step it in.
And then you could get, say, our ultimate target's 20%. We phase it in over 3 years at a little over 6.5% to get to the 20.
Good, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it's not all
Eases in
shock
a
and
little
awe
bit. Yeah.
and one fell swoop, and
It's
they
just-
can kind of ease into it over time. And we can look at that on a spreadsheet, and it can be real values.
A less benefit heavy plan will make, in some ways, recruiting new staff more competitive. On certain margins, and effects on existing staff I'm not discussing here at all, but certainly we understand, or I come to understand, the state is trying to move in a direction that is not so heavy on these extremely benefit-laden plans and moving more toward wages in the future. That seems to be a practice that forward-thinking state governments across the country are doing. I am not tracking forward-thinking municipal governments across the country on this margin, but it's certainly true that forward-thinking state governments are trying to, as a general matter, move away from extremely generous healthcare subsidies and moving toward substituting that for greater wages to be more competitive in the broader labor market.
Well, because I think it is true, if you're paying all this for the healthcare, you can't pay as much in wages, you just can't do it.
Right.
And if the employees can share some of the cost, then we can be more generous in, the salaries. And it's not that there's no risk, there's risk and there's cost. It's a question of who bears it, it doesn't go away. But I just think we need to go to the 80-20. I think we actually need to step down the plan, but I think Dan's right that we could do it in a way, we could do it
We can
gradually
do
over
it to
time.
make it relatively painless.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know, it's,
But just not have something
what
that's
you're
going up
saying
so
about
fast.
the employees understanding this
Yeah,
is they gotta understand that what we actually pay to employ them
right,
is their wage.
right.
It really is their wage.
It's,
So that's not the way most people look at it, that's certainly not the way
Yep.
most employees look at it. But if it costs you $30,000 in benefits and match, that $30,000 is really taken out of your pocket by the employer to satisfy the
Correct.
regulations, and
it's
your
part of this, the
money.
fully loaded cost versus the
Burden.
hour.
That's why they call
yeah.
it the burden.
Yep.
And Steve had a hand up.
I just want to say, just following up, just looking at percentages, you know, you're looking at 15% here. I'm just gonna use a percentage for a salary adjustment that you mentioned at one of the last water department of like 7% or 7 3/4. And right before coming over, I read something about the school funding is going up on an average 5.3%. So if you add those three numbers, you're talking 28%. That,
Yep.
yeah.
If wages were, or if taxes were only wages, if you like that, you decline that by some percentage of capital and physical goods and things like that, you're still talking a big scary tax increase. And ultimately, big scary tax increase is something that was going to be part of the conversation this year, no matter what, with the way school taxes are going and with offsetting cash on hand, things like that. But in any case, it sounds like the sense of the board right now is we're not going to take any action on this year. Do not table this, or do not put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Not inaction here keeps us on the status quo without a motion or anything like that. And then as soon as we get the future costs next year, make a big beautiful spreadsheet that we can put on the agenda at the first.
We'll hit this
Salary,
early.
Explains benefits,
Right.
everything,
I will make
dollar
it
for
this-
dollar.
the
Well, and
third
you can
most beautiful
start-
spreadsheet I've ever made.
You can start to make the spreadsheet with the 25 premiums in there and
Absolutely,
model
yeah.
out what it would look like. And
Yeah,
then
we
as
can
soon as
get
we get
that
the
out now.
26 numbers, we just dump them in and it auto
Yeah.
recalculates.
Yeah, it'll be really easy to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will plan on that, which should be beginning of October or middle of October next year when we get those numbers.
And I think I read this is passive enrollment this year, so yeah, we're just not
We don't
making
have to
any
do
changes.
anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And just to have for your budget discussion, or maybe at the next meeting, since you have a finite amount of employees, and you figure if they're not gonna change from Plan A to Plan B, what is the financial impact to the town? You know, of that increase?
Right.
You know, is it $275,000? Is it $15,000?
It's
But it's good, you know, to
Yeah,
have
it's
that.
Good number to have.
it'll be useful to have for the year on year. We know that staff mix changes and different people shifting onto and off of the healthcare plan will cause a substantial increase on that. I will be the first one to say the biggest person on that and the biggest piece of that is myself. And due to the unfortunate job loss of the very generous, more generous than even this platinum plan package that I had in the previous regime. So yes, the taxpayers will be paying a substantial increase. That substantial increase is substantially tied to my own wages, and I'm certainly very clear with taxpayers that when that conversation happens, that I chose to stay off of taxpayer expense, even though this package was extremely good for 4+ years. So that's
But
a
we don't
conversation
have
we'll have.
to, we don't
but
have to go into the
Yeah, but we won't go into that. But that will be
details,
the thing we can expect.
and it's like when we hire someone, we don't know whether they're gonna take health insurance or not, we don't know
It's not a
necessarily if they have 7
determination in
kids or not,
hiring.
we
What type of
can't
plan?
take that, so the costs just fall out as they fall
Yep.
out. The key thing is, all the health insurance costs that we have, they're just growing too fast. And what happens when you have something that's growing disproportionately fast, faster than other parts of the budget, it just starts taking over the budget. And so we just have to take action. So I think it's really good to have this out there now, and I think that as we go forward, when we talk to different departments or different employees about the compensation changes for this coming year and their departments, to bring this material up so they can be thinking about it, and it's not comfortable for them, but we're being very upfront about it, and we're giving them a chance to say, something like somebody might rather go down to silver and have us still pay more. Let's hear what people want. We're not gonna guarantee that they're gonna get a vote or that we're gonna do what they want, but let's hear what they want.
It's not
But
like we have
wanna make-
thousands of employees, we have a handful of
Yeah.
employees.
I mean, I think we need a chart right now of what this costs per employee per hour that we can pass off to them.
Oh, yeah,
That
right,
we can pass
breaking
off
it
to
out
them.
for each
Oh,
individual,
you wanna
yes.
break it down per
Yes,
hour,
yes,
that's
absolutely.
easily
We
done.
can strip that down.
And, but
Because
that's
it's
what
really
they,
eye-opening.
that's what they
It's
don't
eye-opening.
understand is exactly how
Exactly.
much it is costing.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Oh,
Sometimes
well,
it's
you're only
almost,
paying blah, blah, blah.
sometimes
Because
it's
they
almost,
never
It
see
does
it.
show that, it does show that on their pay stubs.
It does.
It is broken down of the benefit that they are receiving every time they get their pay stub.
but you don't necessarily add it up when you see that, and you don't, I think we can have it per hourly wage, and we could even have the total per year, and then it's really laid out. Janet, you're absolutely right, but most of us don't scrutinize that as much as we should.
Yeah,
We don't
it's
look
good
at
to
all
know
those
that
withholdings.
it is there. And
I do, you never know when they
so,
make a
in any
mistake.
case, sounds like there's
Okay,
no,
so this is really useful, Nick, what you did prepare now, and I
Yeah,
think Jamie's right.
I'll improve
to,
that
to,
spreadsheet.
to create individual ones, and I think we should revisit this regularly until we get to next October, September, and then we gotta
I would even mention it at town meeting day.
Yeah,
Get
it's
it-
just something.
Get it out there.
It's gonna be
Right.
impossible to avoid
It's
when
public,
talking
it's
about
public, and but the other thing too is like, we're expressing where we are now, we can't bind future select boards.
Right.
Because there's gonna be other, different select boards in the future, they may decide to go faster, slower, but this is where we are now, and we put it out there in the
Taking-
public, and I think
Taking
that's really
any
good.
steps to control healthcare costs will be the first time that has ever meaningfully happened in this government. And that will be a big deal for this government
Oh,
and
and
the taxpayers going to.
And I understand the uses of health savings accounts, I've even had them, but I just don't really wanna make things any more complicated. I wanna
Yeah.
focus on getting people health insurance, and that's what we need to do.
Okay, so, yep, so that's the next one.
BCRC.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is the road erosion
6.1,
inventory agreement.
agreement with the BCRC for a road erosion inventory.
80% funded by a grant, and this is to complete state regulatory environmental regulatory requirements, which are due by December of 26 or 27. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're going to be completed in 25, and that will have Jim Henderson from the Regional Commission check every segment, update the computer systems. This is the kind of project that would take me at least 2 weeks of dedicated time. And we got a grant to cover 80% of it. So
And he knows the roads.
He did the
really,
last
really
one.
well.
Yeah, he
So, so no one knows this about our roads in this particular database better than Jim
Do
does.
we authorize you or me to sign?
We will authorize Dan because I cannot sign this with the conflict.
Gotcha.
I make a motion to approve of an Arlington road erosion inventory memo of agreement with Jim Henderson of the Bennington County Regional Commission. To
Complete a road erosion
complete
inventory.
the road erosion inventory for an amount not to exceed $8,300, which will largely be covered by our Better Back Roads grant, and we will have a match of $1,660. That's a pretty long motion, sorry.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Glenn to authorize myself to sign the memo of agreement with the Bennington County Regional Commission to do the road erosion inventory in 2025, I believe. it is,
I
right?
actually didn't include in my
It is
motion
2025.
authorizing you to sign it.
The chair is inherently allowed to do that.
Okay.
Very good, take it
Um,
implicit.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. I would say let's do the warrants and the TA report and things like that beforehand. I don't have anything particular to report if there are any questions on this. It was obviously a short reporting period with the holiday.
Second. That is signed.
And I can report that the water grant that was due this evening at 5 o'clock was completed this morning and is in for the $90,000 in acronym that I can't remember once. So that is good. Fire Act grant application is hoping to be done end of the week, early next week.
Okay, I make a motion to approve check warrant report number WD 23 dated 11/27/24, being the operating expenses of the Arlington Water Department. Key elements are the health insurance premiums, and then various minor operating expenses. Motion to approve total of $1,288.59.
Second.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Glenn to approve check warrant report WD 23, total amount of $1,288.59. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion approved.
I'm gonna make a further motion to approve the general fund invoices for the town operation. I just wanna review, key components are, of course, health insurance premiums, as we were just speaking, an appropriation to BCRC, gravel, love gravel, fire department maintenance, new equipment, 16,000, I think that's the SCBA's, I'm not sure, no, something else.
That was
And
here, yes.
Holly's grading for the sidewalk maintenance, so those are key elements, 'cause it's a little bit bigger than it sometimes is, and those elements, went into that. So, motion to approve check warrant report number 24 dated 12/2/24, for the town of Arlington general fund expenses. Motion to approve total $85,107.90.
Second.
Motion made by Cynthia to approve check warrant report number 24 in the total amount of $85,107.90. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
What's our executive session? Personnel and legal?
Yeah, personal and legal. Property, that's the biggest one. Yeah, personal property legal.
Oh, we got all of, we're covering
All
them
three.
all this
All
time.
three, it's,
So,
I'm hoping that it's 5 minutes of all
It's
three.
the hat trick, fun.
Taking any action when we come out?
No public actions that I am thinking of.
All right, so I'll make a motion that a premature discussion of the trifecta personal property and legal issues would cause the municipality to suffer a substantial disadvantage.
Second?
Motion made by Matt and seconded by Cynthia to establish the reason for the executive session as a personnel, property, and legal matter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. All right, now I'll make a motion to enter into executive session for the reason of personal property and legal matters and to allow town administrator Nick Zias to remain in the room.
Second?
Motion made by Matt and seconded by Cynthia to enter into executive session to discuss said personnel, property, and legal matters and to allow town administrator Zias to remain in the room. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recording stopped.